Microsoft, ready to play. From the co-designer of the hit title Civilization comes Age of Empires. From the Stone Age to the Iron Age, experience 10,000 years of amazing discoveries as you build your tribe into a great civilization. Will you explore new lands, amass great riches, or conquer all in your path? You choose your favorite form of world domination. Age of Empires.
We're here tonight to bring you all kinds of Age goodness, including a first look at Age of Empires Definitive Edition, interviews with developers, and at the end of the show, we will be making a huge announcement.
Yes! Come on, everybody!
Joining me here tonight is my co-host. It's Mr. Greg Boyd. Let's hear it for Greg Gray!
Oh! This is so good. We've got a live audience in here tonight, and this is absolutely amazing. Hi, everyone. Hello, and indeed, wololo! Now, before we get to anything else, can we just have a little chat about that commercial we just witnessed?
Wow.
How good was that?
That was
so many memories. That was the original Age of Empires commercial from 1997.
How long ago was that, Gray?
Well,
do some maths.
if I did my maths right, we are here to celebrate the 20th anniversary of this real-time strategy classic! That's right. And that just goes to show you, well, it shows me how old I feel right now.
All right.
But beyond that, it goes to show you both the longevity and the amazing legacy of this incredible franchise. So I hope you've foraged for supplies and built your watchtowers, because you are not going to want to go anywhere else tonight. On top of what you already mentioned, Julia.
Oh, yes.
I am excited that we'll be talking to some of the top Age players in the world, some of whom are right behind us here already. They're here to give us some strategy tips.
But we aren't just talking about a game from 2 decades ago. We're here to preview the release of the all-new Age of Empires Definitive Edition.
Right.
Oh, yes. And when we say definitive, we really mean it. But, sorry, does that mean that we weren't really serious when we said it all the other
I've
times?
meant it from day one. I was not
feel
joking.
like I have. This new release has been revamped from the bottom up with all new 4K graphics, plus remastered sound and music.
Yeah, and it looks absolutely beautiful.
Those
and
Wololos
sounds
will
even
be
better.
amazing.
Even the Wololos have been
The
remastered.
Wololos will be
It sounds
amazing.
so good. And it's not just us two taking you through all this excitement. She's cooler than Cleopatra. She's more badass than Boudica. She's our very own queen of the party. We have Kate Yeager down on the floor, where she is pathfinding her way through an array of civilizations. Over to you, Kate.
Thank you, guys. Now, it has been 20 years since the original game came out, and tonight we are here to celebrate. And to give you a first look at the new Definitive Edition, I got a fan here with me. First off, tell me who you are.
Hey, I'm Lutz, and yeah, that's me.
That's you. How long have you been an Age of Empires fan?
Oh, well, this is since 14 years, I think. Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, okay, so just you're brand new to the franchise.
Oh yeah, I've just started picking up. I started with Age of Empires 1. Maybe in like 2 or 3 years, I'll be ready to start moving over to Age of Empires 2, and maybe like in 10 to 15 years, let's start with the third one.
Well, I think you've got a fantastic lineage going, but let me ask you this question: which is your favorite?
My favorite Age of Empires game? Mm-hmm. Oh, it has to be Age of Empires 2. Well, it's first of all, the time period is my absolute favorite. You got so many things you can just do there. I'm a big fan of the scenario editor, of course, and yeah, custom campaigns, scenarios. There's just so much you can do with it.
Hey! Well, myself and the entire Xbox and Windows 10 team want to give you something for being such a good sport and such a great Age of Empires fan. Do we have the thing? Oh, what's this? Oh, is it a GeForce GTX 1080 card? You bet it is! Bruce, and that is all for you, my friend. Go forth and conquer. You're speechless.
Yeah, pretty much.
Didn't think this was going to happen tonight, did you?
Not quite. I thought maybe a t-shirt or something.
Well, you know what? We're going to let you go and enjoy the rest of the party. Thank you so much. Thank you. Give him a round of applause, everybody. Now, just like the game, this event is celebrating the 4 geographical regions found in the definitive edition. So let's talk about them. Behind me, we got East Asia. Then we have the Middle East. Next is the Mediterranean. Yeah. And over there we got Central Asia. Yeah. Awesome. And did I mention we have giant tusks representing the Stone Age? Giant tusks. Yeah. Okay, so I think we can all agree that the Age of Empires is an epic franchise. So to celebrate, we have put together this look at how its storied history began.
Ensemble's beating heart was passion for games, and it fed into everything they did.
Age of Empires had this blend of action and sort of an abstract beauty.
The sun was always shining in Age of Empires games. It was inviting.
It was very good gameplay, and that just holds up.
It's so iconic that it's really stood up the test of time.
I was just out of college, or just out of quitting college. Wanted to get into programming, so first started as a freelancer, and then that led to starting Ensemble Corporation with John Scott.
It was the two of us initially, and we quickly had a few more people growing that company. And it was really focused on business software, did a lot of stuff with banks, typical business stuff. But even in that venue, Tony, he was always a outside-the-box thinker, super creative at heart.
The company was largely successful. It grew slowly over time, and there were a number of people involved in the company, maybe 30 or 40 by the time we talked about starting a game company.
From the time I was a Dungeons & Dragons player in junior high school, I'd always wanted to start a game company. I thought it was a board gaming company, and then I thought it was a computer game company, so that was always on my mind.
I think Tony really only did the business stuff so we could get to the game.
We had absolutely no idea how to go about doing it.
When I was in junior high, I joined a gaming club called HSS, Historical Simulation Society. Bruce was there too.
I remember teaching them how to play some games, and they told me later that they thought I was one of the guys in the club that they looked up to.
I kept track of him, thinking one day I'll start a game company. He had been the co-designer of Sid Meier's Civilization and worked with Sid Meier's.
15 years later or so, Tony called me up actually and said he asked me about the process of making computer games.
Our theory is we were going to get all gamers to the company and see if we could build the greatest game the world had ever seen. That was our idea.
There was no game idea on the books when we started. The first idea that I recall was like the television show Lost, where people are stranded on an island and they have to get their materials together to get off.
The team at Ensemble definitely was taking influence of seeing how RTS was growing and how there were other RTS games out there that maybe weren't historically set.
I wanted randomly generated maps. I wanted the game to be different every time you played. And we wanted to have a non-cheating AI that played like a real human being.
Warcraft 1 really focused our direction.
We looked at Command & Conquer and Warcraft and Civilization, and we made a list of what those games were doing really well. Why were they successful? What was important about those games? We have to be as good as them in what they're doing really well. And what they're not doing is our opportunities. That's where we're going to make our game different.
I think the topic is the most important decision you have to make when you're doing any game.
My real passion was history. I read a lot of historical fiction, and so when Age came around, for me it was this perfect melding of the kinds of games that I like to play, real-time strategy games, with this history that I loved.
Turns out there was an awful lot of people who liked the historical aspects. I know I was asked once by Bill Gates. We had to make a presentation to Bill Gates, and he says, man, we should be marketing this as an educational thing. And I said, no, I don't think so. I mean, there's an education that might happen, but it's not going to happen until people are having fun. So we got to entertain them first, and if they learn something, then that's great. And then the idea came along, why don't we take the gameplay from Warcraft and Command & Conquer, this real-time strategy gameplay, and merge it with the historical and economic aspects of Civilization that I had helped build a few years earlier.
We got an early version of Age of Empires up and running, and all you could do is chop trees at the time. but it looked kind of like Age of Empires.
So Tony calls up Microsoft and he gets a guy on the phone named Ed Ventura, and he goes, "You got to come down and see our demo."
So I had a product manager, Ed Ventura, who was out looking at different developers and different games that we could potentially sign, and he told me about Age of Empires and told me to come to Dallas and visit the team. It was actually pretty amazing because what we saw in this very, very limited demo was the heart of a lot of what we loved about Age. It looked gorgeous. It looked like a world you wanted to spend more time in. And the little mechanics that they had implemented were fantastic. And so that was almost an insta sign.
PC Gamer magazine ran a cover story called The Year of the RTS, and it had a cover story listing 50 RTS games coming in the next 12 months. Out of that, when we look back in history, only a very small number of games, are ones that people even remember today. We can be proud that we stood up to a lot of competition and exploration in a genre that was exploding at that time.
I don't think there's many people that don't know what Age of Empires is. Everyone knows it, everyone probably played it.
They gave us a plaque. I have it at home for 1 million sales. And they were ecstatic. It exceeded expectations at 1 million. At 2 million, I put a little sticker over it and wrote 2 million on it. At 3 million, I wrote 3. And after that one, I just kind of took it off and said, don't need to count anymore. It just kept going.
I remember coming off of the end of Age of Empires 1, which is right when I joined. Coming into the development of Age of Empires 2, it was kind of this moment that you get sometimes in the game industry where you have a team that just finished a game, like the first game in a franchise, and it's kind of, we just have this feeling of there's all these things we wished we could have gotten in that game, but we just ran out of time, and so everybody was dying to make the sequel.
And I think the Middle Ages was the best topic of all for a strategy game like that. I mean, men were still basically banging on each other and shooting arrows at relatively short range, and the units were still recognizable. We had these great images of knights and castles. And when you heard the trebuchet go off, it was really bad news.
The online component of being able to play against other human players was finally coming into its own there in the mid-90s.
We had just hit the sweet spot in the balance and the design of that game so that it's just endlessly replayable, especially multiplayer. The kind of scenarios that you encounter when you're playing online, they're just so varied, and there's so much strategy there that you can just kind of keep going. There's still, I think, new strategies being discovered today.
I think some of what happens, and you see this in a lot of franchises, the first one happens somewhat underground and it grows. And as a player, you feel like, oh, I kind of missed the boat on the first one, but it sticks in your head as one of these games that you have to go play. So when the second one comes around, there's a lot more interest in it because the name Age of Empires is out there. You feel like, okay, I'm not going to miss it this time. I'm not going to miss this launch event.
It was a perfect storm of a game. We'd learned so much making Age 1.
Age 2 was the ultimate, kind of the pinnacle for a whole variety of reasons. My favorite review, Computer Gaming World, said, this is the ideal sequel. This is what you want. It's got all the heart and the feeling of that first game that you loved with just the right amount of novelty and new features to give it new life and actually improve on that base experience.
Between Age 2 and Age 3 was Age of Mythology, which was a real departure.
We really love fantasy, but we also really love history. And then it hit us, that's mythology. That's the perfect topic.
The nice thing about Age of Mythology is it was a quasi-sequel. It was obviously rooted in a lot of the mechanics and ideas of the earlier games, but it gave them a lot more creative license. And I think it really gave them a little bit of a charge. Like, oh, hey, let's go off and learn about Norse mythology and how to work that in the game in an interesting way. And let's create some new mechanics and some things that you could never have in a historically based world.
It was this branch of the franchise, right? It wasn't a mainline Age of Empires title, but so many people responded so strongly to it. It kind of had the most active and vocal community of any of the games we had worked on.
By the time we got to Age 3, the team down at Ensemble was really kind of world-class as a game production team. I think a lot of times you see teams in that third or fourth iteration for them really hit their stride because so much of what it means to just be a team working on a video game together goes away, and it becomes about focusing on the game itself.
I have to say some of the campaigns in Age 3 were one of my favorites in the whole series.
We had physics, cannonballs, hit buildings and broke off little pieces of buildings, and we just tried to amp up the realism.
It was Age coming to North America, which was a new challenge. We added the home city, which kind of added an RPG element to the Age franchise. There was more change, I thought, in Age 3 than the previous Ages when they were trying to add so much more to the franchise, but I was proud of what we were able to accomplish.
You know, Bruce has a fantastic saying, the sun always shines in Age of Empires. You know, Age was always a place where it was idyllic. It was just a place that people could recognize and they could connect with.
What makes Age special is it's easy to pick up and play, but it's really deep. So anybody can jump in and enjoy it, but it takes real mastery to get great at them.
We did a lot of different experiences in those boxes.
Nothing feels, out of place, right? There's this amazing holistic environment that players can kind of get into. There's deep levels of strategy and always new things to explore and to learn. And when you have a nice big community, there's always people influencing how the game is played, how it changes over time, how the meta experience of the game evolves, and that kind of keeps them fresh year after year after year.
Age of Empires 2 was really built around user-made content. Even after 20 years, people are still churning out content and playing new stuff, and there is no limit to that, pretty much.
I was mostly just playing around the scenario editor, loved elephants, loved just screwing around and kind of building these giant battles.
You would get parents that would talk about the Age of Empires as something that they felt was good for the kids, because it actually kicked off at least a question about history. And I think that's maybe as important as really injecting the history lesson right into the game.
What Ensemble Studios did 20 years ago has affected millions and millions of people and gave them some good memories. To me, that's the most important thing, I think.
I love working in the game industry because every once in a while I get to meet my heroes. And for me, the Ensemble guys, the Age guys, they were my heroes.
We were also passionate about Age of Empires and about what we were excited to bring to the world.
They worked long hours, they poured everything they had into this game. And then I think the other thing that was a little surprising was how good everyone was at their jobs, even though most of them had no background in games.
The number of talented people that Ensemble Studios attracted was amazing. I think part of the formula was that we didn't know anything about games. We didn't have any ideas about what was hard, so we just thought everything would be easy, and we moved forward with stuff.
There's still people who play Age of Empires 1 today. If these guys didn't go anywhere in the last 20 years, I don't see them going anywhere in the next 20.
Oh, yes! How about that little fantastic V2? Check this out! Look at my helmet.
I think it looks good on you.
Thank you.
I didn't want to ruin my hair.
I got a promotion during the course of
Really?
that VT,
Is that
so
how it
that'd be
works?
quite good. Yeah, this is actually the most hair I've had for probably 15 years. So that's
Well,
good.
live in the moment, Gray. Live in the moment.
What about that for a history lesson, though,
That
right?
was
So
amazing.
many memories, so much nostalgia, so much progress, and always at the heart of everything Age of Empires is the players and the fans of this incredible series. Great to see some of that again, wasn't it?
Well, also as well, just thinking about fuddling how many hours of your life you
Absolutely.
You're like,
Oh God, especially when I was a
That was a whole
teenager and I
summer.
could get away with it. It was
Yeah.
amazing. Those carefree days when all I had to worry about was foraging for berries. I loved it.
You're painting a really weird picture of your life right now,
Yeah.
Gray.
Well,
I'd
it's
say.
interesting teenage years in Aberdeen. Right, joining us now is Adam Icegreen and Shannon Loftus from Microsoft Studios, everybody! Here to talk to us more about this amazing series. Welcome. How about this, eh? What a party. Thank you. Great, isn't it?
Amazing. Well, tonight was 20 years in the making. Obviously, so much excitement. So how important have been, the fans to this game and to this franchise?
There's no game, there's no franchise without fans. Wir lieben unsere Spieler.
Hey! Very good.
The fans are what kept this franchise going for 20 years. The players, the modders, the teachers in schools that use Age as a teaching tool. All of that has contributed to making just an incredible love for the franchise. And I think it's really important that we acknowledge our fans that are here tonight.
Yes.
So Stevie, can you help me out here for a minute?
Oh! Oh, no, that's the fancy one! Oh, my God! I need that. Great. Where did you get these ones? I want that one. That one's way better.
We have a learned scholar from the Mediterranean.
We do. These are wonderful replica helmets, and these are exclusive to the event tonight, and we're going to be giving them away to fans. So let's start that off. Who wants this?
Oh, my God!
This helmet! Who have we got back here?
She is the biggest Age fan.
You got it.
Put it on, put it on!
Congratulations.
Put it on, put it on, put it on, put it on!
Congratulations.
Well done. Look at that. Adam, you're so generous. That's fantastic. Love it. I wonder if everyone at home can see there's a very special Roman just in the background
can we
here.
see-
Can we switch to the other camera for a second?
Can you see who's loitering around today? Look at this.
I've waited 20 years for this.
You've been hanging on to that costume this whole time.
Finally got there, Aaron.
That's right.
All right, let's get back on track here. That was fantastic. Well done, Adam.
Focus.
So, Shannon, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you've been at Microsoft Studios since the very inception of the
I
Age
have.
of Empires series. So
It's true.
How's the journey been for you?
You know, I was not lucky enough to work on Age in the early days, but I was lucky enough to be in the same team, so I got to beta test it. I remember that feeling when you would just fire up the game for the first time and have one villager and a town center, and the knowing that anything could happen. And in fact, over the thousands and thousands of games that we played, anything pretty much did. It was a blast. And then just seeing it all come together, seeing all the systems start to work together to make the game that we all know and love today, I feel so lucky to have been part of that.
There's not many game franchises that last this long, right? I mean, it really has
absolutely
withstanded
true.
technological changes.
There's only one
and
reason
gaming
that this
changes.
franchise has lasted so long.
And it's all these fans here, right?
Fans.
Fantastic.
That's right.
And of course, Adam, you've got your super long history in like real-time strategy. Can you tell us a little bit about the kind of like, what you've gone through over the years?
Yeah, well, I got my start really at Westwood Studios working on the Command & Conquer RTS games years ago. And since then, I've made a whole bunch of RTS games, but, moved on and it was on console and other things like that. So when at Microsoft, we said, hey, Age of Empires, I'm like, oh, I'm in. I'm in. I'm back.
Heard the word age, you were like, I'm already.
Oh, yeah, I'm done. Put me on it, Brad.
Adam, you made a point earlier that I loved, and it really resonates with me, is that Age of Empires is a kind of franchise and a game that really taught me a lot about history and actually made me appreciate history a little bit more. Civilization did the same thing as well.
Yes.
Is that something that you're both very proud of with this series, that it's really given a love of history to gamers?
I think that it is wonderful that we have a game that not only can entertain but can teach. And I think that is super important, not just for the gameplay, but for the historical lessons that we've taught. And in Age DE, we've gone back and actually made sure that all the history is completely accurate. Because there were a couple things that were a little off in the original version that we've gone and cleaned up now, so we can make sure we're presenting history in a way that people can really believe that it is actual history.
Like my brother is obsessed with reading history books and things like that, and he was always going on and on about I think he fancied himself as a bit of a strategist. So finally we could see that he was actually just terrible. Like he thought he was really good. He read all the books, but actually couldn't hack it in the real world.
Well, I did actually meet somebody yesterday who told me that he went to Cambridge and studied history because of Age of Empires.
Wow.
So I love meeting people who grew up playing this game, and it influenced what they chose to do with their lives.
Changing people's lives.
That's right.
Because history for me was always, I was always really interested in it, but it was such a boring thing to learn at school. Because what are you going to do? You just read it out of a book. You can't even begin to understand the complexity of how things went on. So actually being in there and seeing how things would work that's
true.
really inspires.
That is right. All right, we need to move along here. So we're celebrating all of the Age games tonight, but a big part of why we're here is, of course, Age of Empires Definitive Edition. So let's take a look at the new trailer.
amazing. And of course, the release date, let's share it again, just obviously so everyone can know.
That's right.
Yes. Yes.
What's the release date, Shannon? So it's so noisy.
I know, I'm really struggling to...
Yeah, so the release date is October 19th.
Yes.
2017. So that's nearly
right, just
20
about
years.
Exactly 20 years after
I
the
think we're a
original
day
release
off.
date. I
We
think
might be a
one
day or two off.
because
Really?
the original release date is a Sunday, so
Yep.
it's actually October 19th.
Wow.
That's really cool.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great homage to the
I
original
know.
there.
The
I love that.
circle of life.
That's right.
And it's great to see.
No, it's not a well. It's, it's a flat circle. I don't know. Anyway.
It's great to see the updated version there, but tell us more about what fans can expect from the definitive edition.
Well, we've done a ton of work to make sure that, you go back and you look at it when we first approach Age, and you look at a game that's that old and you say, wow, I remember this game looking a little different than what it might look like. And so for us, what we wanted to do is we wanted to capture what everyone's rose-colored glasses version of Age was in their minds and bring that to life in the definitive edition. So that means, 4K visuals, all of the units have been updated, orchestral score, modern multiplayer, tools, everything that we can provide to make Age, this definitive edition, an edition that can go another 20 years.
One of the stories I really love about this is that the definitive edition was essentially created by fans, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, actually, it's a great story. The company that's now working on Definitive Edition is called Forgotten Empires, and they started out as guys that were modding Age of Empires, and one of their mods was so successful, they found themselves in need of a corporation, and so they became game developers. They went from fans to game developers overnight.
I love those stories. There are so many of those stories.
Yep,
It's
absolutely.
amazing.
It's fantastic.
And they're great partners for us as well. They really understand Age.
Good.
Oh,
All right.
amazing. Wow.
Great.
I think we should let you guys get back to the party. You can relax,
Right. Time
stop
for a coach.
sweating a little
Yeah.
bit.
And it is a party in here. You guys are rowdy.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, wow. Yeah, but we'll be back. We'll be bringing these guys back at the end of the show for that very big announcement.
Do not miss it. We've got such good announcements for you. But let's head back to the party floor to see what Kate is up to now. All right. Kate's up.
Kate, where are you?
I'm just hearing in my ear that Kate has been partying so hard with the fans on the floor that we have to keep talking for a little bit longer.
Well, she was supposed to go to the bar, in all honesty, and get us a little drinky, but obviously she's been waylaid.
All right, so let's talk a bit more about what we saw in Definitive Edition.
Yeah.
One of the things that... Oh, no, we're ready to go back to Kate. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
We're ready to go back to Kate. Kate, what have you been up to? I want to know now.
Welcome to Fan Central here. We're in the Mediterranean section. I'm going to go talk to these two guys because they look like they know what they're talking about. Oh, fancy seeing you guys here. What's your name?
I'm Daniel.
Benny.
Do you guys like Age of Empires?
I love Age of Empires since first hour.
Since first hour?
Yeah. He was like this and he plays the game. So how does he
I
did
couldn't
this?
write or read, but I was playing Age of Empires and it was totally awesome.
Okay, so you're also playing the Definitive Edition. What are your thoughts? Give us a 411.
It looks so good. The graphics are so beautiful and the sound, it's like old times. They change a little bit, but it's pure awesome. I do really like it.
It gives me goosebumps. It's so amazing. It's ever this old game and it looks so good. It's
Yeah.
just nice.
Well, I think you guys... and that's exactly what it is. Guys, I'm going to actually talk to our camera people here and say thank you so much. Now, we are surrounded by fans like these, but let's meet the fans and the team behind the Definitive Edition right
The
now.
Definitive Edition started with looking at something that was already going on.
A small group of kind of passionate guys at the Age 2 community were working on this unofficial expansion for Age of Empires 2.
I actually remember the very first goal we had when we released the first mod. It was like, I want 20,000 downloads. That was my goal. And we hit that after 2 hours and one crashed website.
And I played that and I saw the love was there. It was so good as basically a mod that we ended up publishing them.
That was sort of the beginning of this revival. With Definitive Edition, we're going back to the very beginning.
Every Age of Empires game, except Age of Empires 1, has seen an extra boost given in the last few years. It needed a refreshment.
For us, it was a really easy call. We've got a group of super talented developers and we've got this great game that people still love. What can we do to modernize it, to bring it into now?
The big piece was visuals, I would say. Everything had to be remade from scratch.
It's shockingly good on the outside, and the music is beautiful.
Microsoft went out to Prague, got a proper symphony orchestra, and they kind of redid several tracks with a full symphony orchestra, which is great.
It takes all those Age melodies that you remember and just blows the doors off of it.
We had to make a lot of gameplay changes as well, because the game, it saw such a big improvement from H1 to H2 that if you now go back, it really feels old.
We've addressed nearly all of the game's shortcomings.
So the series is now cohesive, which is a wonderful achievement.
We took what was already pretty incredible and just made it even better.
5 years ago, I was working in a restaurant, and I was still playing Age of Empires like once in a while, and I started to dabble around in modding. I was like, okay, I have ideas, but I can't make graphics, I can't make sounds. Then we started sourcing from the community and said like, hey, want to help out a bit?
Forgotten Empires, this awesome group of Age fans, made these editions. They literally did on their own, called The Forgotten.
What's great about Age is you just have so much passion throughout the world that you can find where passion's kind of coupled with talent, and you just get some really special people.
The most rabid fans of the series getting together, a modding team, pooling the talent to form a full-fledged developer.
I think the passion of the fans making something that cohesive surprised me. I think the Forgotten Empire guys with their campaigns, they were just as good as the ensemble campaigns. And that's a testament to their dedication, and I think that's rare. I think they took a calculated risk in partnering with us and allowing us to be stewards of the franchise.
Most important for us was there's a team that we can work with that have that same passion, that still believe in this product and want to make it new again.
When I started with Age of Empires series in 1996, I never in my wildest dreams thought that 21 years later I'd be working on the same game, the same code base.
It's a timeless franchise, and it has proven that already. This moment of time, the rebirth of Age of Empires 1 in this definitive edition for the 20th anniversary, I think is just the beginning of a much longer journey that we're about to embark on.
Of production at Microsoft Studios York. Oh my gosh, you have just got to be having a good time right now.
Oh, it's amazing to be here in Germany with all of our biggest fans. Are there some Age of Empire fans out here? All right, I'd like to meet you. Some of the biggest fans of all. These are Forgotten Empires. These are the guys made the definitive edition. Bert, when did you start with this Age of Empires business, and where are you actually based?
We are from all over the world. We're friends from all over the world. We're based in Belgium, Germany, France, Spain.
So, the definitive edition, these are the guys that made it. I wanted to introduce you to some other fans.
Oh, yeah.
Let's come here. What's your name?
Jan.
Jan, when did you start playing Age of Empires? Where are you from?
I'm from Germany, and I started playing with the first Age of Empires.
All right, man of the first hour. What's your favorite moment in Age?
To convert enemy unit with a priest.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Yeah, welcome.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Come on over.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Felix.
And what's your history with Age of Empires?
Well, Age of Empires was one of my first games, and I had little money, so I had to get it from the library. And but that was the plan of all the boys in my town. So there was a list of all the boys want to get this game, and we had to share it, so to say, in town.
That's awesome.
It was fun.
Right.
Made friendships, so to say.
That's nice. What's your first time? What's the first game you played?
Yeah, it was one of my first games.
H2?
No, H1.
H1.
Yeah.
Another fan of the first hour. That's awesome.
Exactly. Tremendous amount of passion.
Oh, what's your name?
I'm Jill. I'm from Cologne here too.
Ah, from Cologne.
Yes,
hey.
I am.
So, Age of Empires. When did you start playing?
To be honest, it's my first time today with Age of Empires.
New fan!
Yay, new fan! So, but I'm really looking forward to be part of such an exciting traditional game, and I know a lot of friends who played from the first hour, so
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I'm looking forward to be
All
such a
right.
fan too. So yeah,
Definitive edition for you to play.
Yes,
That's great.
Fantastic.
All right, so
Exactly. Well,
so-
you got, yeah, I was going to say, look at all of these fans. It's really easy to see the passion
One more
that's
time.
here. Exactly. Well, I mean, we've got actually a number of things that we're going to toss to you, but guys, since we're here, a huge round of applause for the team
guys.
behind it. And a huge round of applause for Jorg, everybody. Listen, audio director Tom Maston was the person tasked with re-recording the score for the definitive edition, but it wasn't the first time he was part of the Age of Empires story. Take a look.
The original Age of Empires actually didn't have that main theme. That didn't actually come about until the second Age of Empires game. So I went back and I personally wrote the main theme for the game. And it's the first thing that you hear when you launch the title. It has the memorable thematic element that is identified with Age of Empires, so you will immediately recognize it. And then we expanded upon that. We picked apart every track. I must have listened to each of those tracks 200 times each. And we pulled out the elements, the elements that are endemic to the track. A lot of indigenous flutes, a lot of indigenous wind and brass instruments mixed with heavy percussion.
Your A in the middle of the line, it's for example 31. The A in the middle is a bit too flat.
Originally, we were just going to take the tracks and make them better. As we started diving in, we realized, you know, we hit a gold mine of material. I went to the well and asked for some additional funding so that we could bookend the experience with orchestral tracks. The music was recorded by the Philharmonic Orchestra in Prague in a single one-day session. As music started rolling off the production line, people were really enjoying what they were hearing, so I was able, at the end of the day, to get about 20 minutes of the full score recorded with a 66-piece orchestra. It makes a huge difference. Them to walk away with the fondness that the generation did 20 years ago and be able to carry that on through the next iteration of the franchise.
Yeah! So good to hear that iconic theme again, remastered, sounding so beautiful after all these years. Now, we've talked quite a bit about the original Age of Empires and the definitive edition, but there is so much more to Age's storied history. And one of the games that has maintained a massive and loyal following is Age of Empires 2, a game that was first introduced in 1999 and is definitely my favourite from the series. And joining me now are two pro Age 2 shoutcasters and legends in the Age of Empires community. It's Zach Robinson and Tyler Doughty. Jets, how are you doing? Now, first of all, you're Zach and Tyler, but what names would the Age community know you better by?
I go by Zero Empires.
Of course.
And I'm Killer B.
Everybody for Zero Empires and Killer B, let's make some noise!
They're up there.
All right, Zero, tell me, when did you start playing Age of Empires?
I started playing from the start. I was just a young boy, and my dad got the game for me, and I picked it up from there.
Yeah, what's your first memory?
Oh man, just playing from a guy from Australia way back in like 2000, and yeah, it was awesome just to be able to connect over the internet like that.
Yeah, that was amazing. Though. People take it so for granted for now, but back then that was a big deal, right?
56K and just it's awesome.
Amazing. Killer B, when did you get into it?
About 15 years ago, I would look forward to coming home from school and playing with my friends, and that kind of was this great experience. And then for a while, I didn't really know how strong this game was, and I saw some videos from Zero Empires, and I was like, I got to get back into this. This game is still rocking. I learned the meta, I learned the strategy, learned the players, and now I feel like I'm part of this awesome community. It's really a great time.
And it's amazing to think that this is a game, you know, the Age of Empires franchise is 20 years old, Age of Empires 2 is like 17, 18 years old, and yet the community is still growing, people are still playing it. It's amazing. What makes it so compelling?
I just love the Age of Empires community because you've got people from all around the world all taking part, and recently we've been organizing a lot of tournaments which have always kept the game alive and always kept people interested, and so that aspect of the community is really awesome, and you know, it's just kept things rolling over the years.
Killer B, what do you think it is about the game specifically that's kept people hooked over all this time?
The game has an incredible amount of depth. A newer player coming in can enjoy the difficulty of the game and the interaction of different armies together. But when you get the chance to watch a pro player, it's like art in motion. It's just such a beautiful game to watch, and that's kind of what got me back into it and a little bit addicted to it. Even though I can't play at that level, it's just a beautiful thing to watch this game.
But you know this game inside out, you know pro players inside out.
Yes.
What separates a pro Age of Empires player from a novice like me, or just an everyday player?
Well, you know, we're celebrating 20 years of Age 1 here, and you know, Age of Empires 2 has been out for a long time as well. And these players have been playing, there's players that still play today that played when it came out. And obviously they've had years and years and years to hone their skills. And you know, it's so hard to reach that skill ceiling. It's just a matter of time.
Are there particular traits or talents that you see in pro gamers, Killer B?
Just an amazing attention to detail. I mean, they're flashing back just a few frames at a time to see their economy, to reconfigure it, to go to their army, to make sure it's positioned. They're doing things that the game developers never thought they would. They're pushing deer in to their town center to make things better. They're luring boars to where they belong. Might not mean a lot to a person who doesn't know the game well, but every detail is so finely sculpted in this game at the pro level. It's a beautiful thing.
And you're going to see a lot of that this week, right? Because you guys are involved with an Age of Empires 2 pro tournament here at Gamescom this week. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, that's right. We have a stage over in the Gamescom main event in Hall 5.2. The players are going to be playing there. There's 4 players from Europe who we've flown in, the best of the best. They've qualified over 4 weeks of qualification rounds. Each weekend, one player has made it into the event, and they'll be playing for $6,000.
All right, excellent. $6,000. Wow, that got a cheer as well. Have you got any tips? Who do you think is going to take the prize?
Well, perennially, the player who's been at the tip-top of the ladder has been the Viper. This is a guy who's known for his really aggressive tactics, relentlessly attacking. He's a beautiful, beautiful defender as well. But we've got a couple of guys coming in who are going to threaten him, and one guy is as young as 17, and
Right.
we're looking forward to seeing what the future holds
The
for
game's
this game.
actually older than him.
Yeah, the game is older than him.
It's incredible. All right, well, maybe I'll join as a wild card, because part of the reason I invited you here is to help me get inside the mind of competitive Age of Empires players. So I know you've brought some clips with you from Age 2 that demonstrate various high-level strategies, right? So let's get into these. Let's talk through them, right? So let's roll the first clip. Talk me through this.
Okay, so this is our first clip right here, and this is a great demonstration of micromanagement. The blue player is using the formations to split his units apart, and these units from the red, the mangonels, the catapults, they're going to do huge damage if they actually hit. But he takes down one of the mangonels straight away, and he's now going to focus on the second mangonel as well. And he's just constantly moving his units around in such a way to continually avoid the damage from the mangonel. Each of these blue units, they have to shoot the mangonel 50 times in order to bring it down. The mangonel is very expensive, whilst these blue units are very cheap, and he makes a really good fight here. He has a really good value at the end of that engagement.
I love how the mangonel was trying to bail out at the end there as well. That's
yeah,
great.
This clip right here is what happens if you don't micro. This is what happens if the mangonel actually hits your units, and they're all grouped up, and they're all going to go down. So he did a really good job to avoid that damage and make sure that in the end, he came out on top.
So that's quite literally divide and conquer. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. All right, let's move on to our next clip here. Talk us through this one.
So clip number 2 features the Mongols. We're watching Mangudai in the red and Mangudai in the blue. Mangudai are a traditional unit in the Mongol army that are great at setting traps for their opponents. The red player here is trying to raid his opponent's economy, and as he heads to the northwest of the map, his opponent actually traps him by building 2 buildings simultaneously, making those units unable to get out of this spot. The blue player will bring an overwhelming size force into this fight, and he will get incredible efficient trades here and basically clean up his opponent's entire army and seal the deal on this game. This game is won at this moment right here, and it's a build-up that you don't see every game, but when you see it, it's a beautiful thing to see.
Right, so this is about actually getting the villagers in on the act as well
yeah.
to help you funnel the enemy into that little channel, right?
Every person is needed here. Yes.
Love that. That's great leadership right there, Killer B. All right, let's roll the next clip. What have we got now?
So we just saw basically a trap in motion, and this time around we're going to see another similar kind of trap. Only this time the red player, moving his archers backwards, he wants to trap himself. He wants to be trapped because that means that the knights can't surround him, and he's able to trade it against the knights really well. But what he doesn't realize is now it's too late. He's trapped, and suddenly there's a mangonel off to the side, and now he can't get out. The mangonel can just come in and clean up his units, and in this situation, he wanted to have his back against the wall, but in the end, that ended up being his downfall. And we're going to see it again now from the red player's perspective. You can see that he doesn't see the mangonel until it's too late. He can't escape now, and he's just going to meet the ultimate ending here as all of his units go down.
That reminds me of the Spartans at the Hot Gates. But the fog of war hit that catapult there, so that's no use. Right, so let's move on to our last clip. Now, when we talked about this earlier, you called this clip Wolf Rush, which I love. It sounds like an incredible energy drink or something. Talk us through this.
This is the Wolf Rush, and the player we're watching right now is MBL. He will be live at our event at Gamescom Saturday. What he's doing here is he's building one militia. This is a very weak unit. By itself, it can't really do very much against his opponent. But what he's doing now is luring wolves, and what he wants to do is bring those into his opponent's economy. And there's a couple of small details here that he's doing that are really beautiful. He's going to use his scout here to block those wolves so that they don't kill his militia before he's done his intended job. In the end, that militia will run to his opponent's wood line and sacrifice himself for the cause. And what you'll see in just a moment here is that these wolves will scatter, and this entire economy will shut down, and you may see some villagers being blocked again by the scout. Beautiful play there by MBL once again. And in the end, he's going to try to kill one of these villagers before he gets home. So using every aspect of the map to your advantage can really help you win games in Age of Empires, and a moment like this can swing a match. This is just a huge, huge bonus for such a small investment. It's all about cost benefit, and that's a beautiful example of it.
Love that. So actually harnessing the forces of nature as well. Incredible. All right, enough talking about competitive play. Let's see some action. And we've got a couple of pro players and some less pro players down there, so I hope they've been taking notes. Let's go back to Kate, who is with some folks in the midst of a heated head-to-head Age 2 match. Let's go.
Okay. Guys, let me talk about heated competition. In this corner, we have Promi and the ever-lovely, ever-popular Julia. Okay, they are playing Age 2. They've been amassing their enemies, their battles, their soldiers, all of their armory, and they're ready. Are you ready?
Yeah, definitely. More than ready.
He's very ready.
Yeah,
He's
excellent,
very
excellent.
ready.
Okay, let's go for it. To the other side, our competitors today are, you saw them before. Please welcome Session, Cision, and not to be outdone, Xbox's own Aaron Greenberg.
We fight till the death.
I was going to ask your strategy, but that feels pretty good.
I'm preparing for war.
War! Yeah, they are amassing a lot of troops. So without further ado, I think we should start this battle on. Players, are you ready?
Ready!
Get it on! And actually, what I want to make sure, we only have 2 minutes. This is fabulous gameplay. We only have a little bit of time, so let's bring up Zero Empires and Killer B down to shoutcast this match. Come on, boys. Come on in. Okay, you go here.
All right.
On over.
Hey guys, we got this.
Only a little bit of time. Let's go.
All right, let's go. What do we got here, Cision? We got, oh, you're using the Ballistic Elephants. Nice. Are you yeah, you're defending from this green from
I'm not hearing any mudslinging, by the way.
Well, I mean, come on. These guys have got this. We don't need to sling any mud. They know they've got it.
I can tell you over here, Kate, that I've got the better looking team for sure.
Oh, you're
their military management is going pretty well. They're synergizing pretty nicely with Paladin for Julia, and Promi here with a couple Paladin as well. Seems to be going into, he's attacking to the north, unpacking the Trebs in a good spot. What are you seeing over there, Zach?
I'm seeing a massive battle on this side. Yellow and red are going at it, but I think you are destroying this. You've got a huge combination of units right here. Well, I think the only red we're going to see is this blood on the ground, right?
I feel like we're dead.
Hey guys, who's going for Julia and Promi's team?
Yeah, let's go for Julia and Promi's
Oh,
team.
that
Come on,
was
guys.
terrible. How about Sijin and Aaron Greenberg's team?
Sijin's got the trade going and everything. He's got this a lot there. Hold on a minute. No, Sijin, sort it out, man. You're losing here. What's going on? You're supposed to be good at this game.
Sijin, didn't you help create this game?
Yeah, what's going wrong here?
I'm a little concerned, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, you got to deal with these Gabeto, man.
Oh my goodness. There we go. Guys, we're going to let you keep on the heat. Julia and Aaron, I know you have a beef going here, so it's kind of the thinking group. That feels right. That nice moment there. Well, while this battle royale continues to escalate, let's send it back to Graham, who's safely up there on the stage.
Yes,
You're really looking the
I
part.
observe the battlefield like a king upon his mighty steed with the troops at his back. How good was that? Some good action in there. Right. Now, before we move on, we wanted to remind you that we still have big news about the future of Age of Empires in just a few minutes. But first, as you have seen tonight, this franchise means so much to Microsoft. And when you talk gaming at Microsoft, there is one name that always comes up, and that name is Phil Spencer. So Phil sat down with Larry Herb, our very own Major Nelson, to talk about the influence that this franchise has had on PC gaming.
I'm here with Phil Spencer. We're talking about Age of Empires. Age is this incredible game that's been around for 20 years, Phil.
Can you believe that?
Why the reboot now, 20 years later?
Well, 20 years is part of that, right? Clearly. But it's also, we've been pretty public about Windows gaming is important to us.
Yeah.
And when we think about our history, Age is probably the biggest Windows gaming franchise we have. But also, as we think about Windows gaming and our reinvestment there, I think Age is a great pillar for us to kind of put in the ground and say, no, the Age franchise is important and something we want to invest in.
Well, you know, it's interesting because you talked about the going back and touching things up. Where do you draw the line? We're like, oh, we're going to make the graphics look good, obviously, but we really don't want to touch the core elements of the game, because then you start unwinding it.
I don't know if there's a right equation on that. I mean, it's not just with Age. We redid Phantom Dust, working with Clayton, and he went off and redid Voodoo Vince.
Right.
It's especially important when you're going back and doing a definitive edition of something, because you want it to feel like the original game.
Right.
You're not trying to make it something different.
Right.
As you said, when you see the old game now, it doesn't look the way you thought it was going to look.
Yeah.
So even the graphics update, some people just say, hey, the game's perfect as it is, and they look at it, well, okay, maybe it wasn't. and then there's certain things about the way it plays, but you don't want to, as you said, kind of start pulling on the thread,
right?
Because then you're building a different game, and you're not being true to what Age of Empires 1 was about.
You've obviously had a chance to play it.
Yeah, I have, yeah.
Do you feel 20 years younger?
I'll say it's aged better than I have.
Right.
I've said this before. I think I view games as an art form, and I think there are pinnacles in gaming that I want people to be able to go back and experience, whether they play all of these games beginning to end, and I want people to have these experiences. So the fact that it was 20 years ago and we get the opportunity to bring this to the modern audience, many of these people weren't even born, right, when this game was originally launched. I see as I'm grateful for the opportunity to do that.
Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow, yes. The time has finally come for our big announcement.
Actually, we've got two announcements.
Two
And we welcome Adam back up on the stage to break this big news.
So we've had such a wonderful time working on the definitive edition of Age of Empires, and we have so much love for the storied history of this franchise that we want to make sure that we do take the same care with Age of Empires 2 and 3. So we're going to be doing definitive editions of both of those titles.
You said get into a battle, beat Aaron, and then you distracted me. So I'm super pleased now there's even more reason to get lost and locked in my bedroom for a
And
while.
if you need a new Scottish accent for the tutorial level in Age of Empires 2, hey,
We'll put you in.
He's very good at his low lows, let me tell you.
All right, now, but we're not done just yet. This is a celebration, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So let's go back to Kate with Shannon for what I think is an even bigger announcement.
Hey! Guys, what a night it has been. Let me recap where we've been. We started at the beginning celebrating 20 years of age. We have given you a look at the upcoming Definitive Edition. And now we're about to say goodnight. And thanks so much for joining us here in Cologne. But before we sign off, you thought I was done. We got one more thing. And as you can see behind me, we have assembled fans, people involved with the Age of Empires, and because we wanted everybody together for this very big piece of news. And who better to give it than our very own Shannon Loftus?
All right. Can I get a whoa? This has been an amazing evening celebrating the history of Age of Empires. The past 20 years have been the most amazing 20 years for RTS fans. Meeting the creators, talking to fans, seeing how Age has influenced people's lives. The past of Age of Empires is so rich. But guess what? So is the future.
Time changes everyone. And everything. Empires will rise. Kingdoms will fall. The grounds of battle become stained with fire and blood. But our thirst for adventure, exploration, discovery, and conquest will stand the test of time. Together, we have battled through history. Now, a new age is upon us.